What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MackTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and today we are in an electric state. These are the times. Just look around you. Everything's electric. Even the device you're watching this on is electric. So obviously, this movie's going to have some hot commentary. This is a Netflix movie. No, it's not. And uh, it's directed by the Russo brothers. So click like and subscribe and we'll talk about it. Yes, this movie also does have audio description. Actually, it has really good audio description. Uh, when you have a movie of this budget, $320 million, you would hope that there would be excellent audio. I hope the AD team got paid. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I hope that trickle down wealth, like, also hit the team that did. I don't know why on earth would you stop giving movies $320 million budgets? What in the good God, Netflix? It's not like the Russo brothers are, you're not giving Spielberg $320 million to make you a Netflix original. You're giving the guys who did pretty good Avengers movies $320 million. Like, what else have they done for you, Netflix, that warrants you to continue to throw money at them? Not great. Not great. But, I mean, they produced some things that are fine, but this is, from what I understand, this is based on a graphic novel that is darker than the tone at which they've chosen to take, and therein becomes sort of the soulless mess that the original source material was sort of making fun of, where we just sort of check out and, you know, watch the dumb things and I don't know. It's Millie Bobby Brown is also not top billing, which is frustrating because her part is the lead. So she has to play second fiddle to Chris Pratt. And again, it's like you've got Chris Pratt, who's literally just playing Chris Pratt here. Like, that was his direction. It's very Star-Lordy. It's like the Russo brothers were like, oh yeah, Chris, just do your thing. And he was like, all right. I guess this is what I do now. You know, nobody ever requires me to act anymore. I just do this likable oaf for the rest of my life. That's what I'm going to do in movies. And Millie Bobby Brown is getting a little old to play teens, but she's still playing a teen here. And she's awarded the state because her parents and her brother died in a car accident, or did they? Question mark. She is not a huge fan of everything that has gone on, which you see sort of told in great detail at the very beginning, is this like massive drop of information about where we were and the robot uprising and how we crushed the robot uprising and how Stanley Tucci came along and invented something essentially like VR where you can escape your life and sit there and just veg out somewhere. There's her foster parent mentions that he's like, I'm in Vegas with Cindy Crawford, you know. So, and meanwhile they are able to, I don't know, have some sort of physical presence left behind, so he has this sort of robotic version of himself, while the real version of himself, I'm sure it made sense in the graphic novel, and I'm sure that with a better sci-fi director, it would have made more sense in this movie, and they would have had something to say with it. But it just, nothing here really works for $320 million. And it's long, and it just feels like it's like a video game, like you're moving from checkpoint to checkpoint instead of a movie with a 3 act structure. So, um, it's a little bit of a road trip movie, which doesn't help it because it has to go from point A to point B to point C to point D to point E. You know, we have to go over here to get this thing, and then we have to go over here because they're going over there. We have to go over there to speak to this person. We have to go over there to find that out. And then we have to, after they tell us that, but then now we have to go over here to get this thing. And it's just, that's what this movie becomes. So it never feels like it has an act structure because you're constantly waiting for your directions to go to the next place. So it feels more like a video game. But she's met one night by Kid Cosmic, which is an old robot that used to have a TV show that her brother, played by, his name escapes me, but he was the kid from Come On, Come On, Woody Norman. Woody Norman. Who has grown up a lot. When he spoke in this, I was like, oh my God, puberty. You found it. I still think of him as the kid from Come On, Come On, and he was in something else too. Was it Antlers? He was in a horror movie. I know that. But yeah. I was like, oh, the kid from Come On, Come On. Look at that. So Kid Cosmic is this robot that that says that basically she's thought her brother's been dead this whole time, but her brother's mind is like floating out there somewhere. And then we sort of see like nefariously somehow Stanley Tucci is using this kid's brain. It's not really well explained how one kid's brain is like the key. It just is. It just is the key to everything. To having stopped the robot uprising, to the VR headsets. This kid's brain, it has become the key to, he is Neo. So, I wanted like a speech as to like all of the other attempts that they had with all of the other car crash victim boys that they tried to use, and it didn't work out. And finally they found the one that made the special sauce. That doesn't really happen. Stanley Tucci's just sort of I don't know, paper thin evil. He just kind of comes in and he's just, I'm evil for whatever reason, because money, I guess. I don't know. Power, question mark, you know? So she has to go on a road trip to regain her brother's body, is what she thinks she's on. Along the way, she's going to run into help in the form of Chris Pratt, who is a human, and his robot sidekick, voiced very unfortunately by Anthony Mackie, in a role that reminded me far too much of the unfortunate additions that we had in the Transformers universe, where they tried to make like little walking stereotypes out of those robots, which at first seemed like the most ridiculous, offensive thing that you would ever see in the Transformers films, until John Goodman started his Transformer comes along smoking a cigar, and you're like, what? That doesn't make sense. Like, what's happening here? Anyway, so yeah, it's a he sounded a little bit like they were using a voice modulator on him too, so he sounded like this is a deep cut. I can't even fully remember, but he sounded like the aliens from Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Like they were using that voice modulator on him. And yeah, so that's kind of what his, it doesn't fully sound like Anthony Mackie anyway. So he got paid, I'm sure. And they're being hunted by the butcher. Um, Giancarlo Esposito plays that. Um, they reluctantly, Millie Bobby Brown, Chris Pratt, and his robot, and Kid Cosmic all go on this adventure together. And they see there are more robots out there. One of them is Mr. Peanut. It's so hard to take this movie seriously. I'm sure that's in the graphic novel, but it's so hard to take this movie seriously when you have Mr. Peanut playing like the central leader of the robot rebellion. Um, and it's voiced by Woody Harrelson. It doesn't do a bad job voicing it. But yeah, there are a whole bunch of other um, actors that voice things that pop up along the way when they get opportunities, like Brian Cox and Jenny Slate just kind of come into play because they can. I love Brian, and I'm happy to hear his voice any time of the day. But even I was like, did he read this? His paycheck must have been really good, because the lines that he has to say feel really inherently stupid. Or he looked at the cast list and was like, Jesus, my God. Um, Between all the people who are making cameos throughout this whole movie, it's a lot of people. There was like Holly Hunter was in here for like 5 minutes. Not even like maybe 5 seconds. I don't know. She just like appeared. I was like, wow, you're in, okay. Oh, you're not that in that much of the movie. Well, that sucks. Um, we have Ke Kwan, Academy Award winner. Ke Kwan is here as a doctor for a minute, and then sort of as like a robot doctor also. I don't know, man. This movie, I for $320 million, it's frustrating. When you put that much into a movie, it should be brilliant. Like, the only reason you give a movie $320 million is because you are positive it exudes brilliance. And looking at this film and looking at the robot uprising and looking at what it could be, and yes, I'm sure like $320 million, and you're like, well, you're blind, and it went into the visuals, and the visuals look really good. Cool. Movie has to be more than just aesthetically pleasing, though. It actually has to, the story has to work. The actors have to feel like they're playing like deep characters instead of just like one note characters. We have to head towards an ending that sort of means something instead of really not meaning anything. But I don't know, this just feels like probably the antithesis of what it was supposed to be to begin with. Instead of being a send-up of essentially junk entertainment, it became junk entertainment. Like, this doesn't feel like it's biting satire at all. I get the feeling that this was a little bit like a dark version of Idiocracy, like sort of a future dystopian world that we should not want for ourselves. But this just feels like any old dystopian world, like Anthony Mackie's Twisted Metal, where it's like, where somebody out there is thinking, oh, this would be really cool because then I could drive cars. Like, somebody out there is thinking, oh, this could be really cool because I could have a robot sidekick. Except, like, nothing ever means anything here. It's like, nothing ever feels like there's ever any consequence. Millie Bobby Brown's never really in any danger. Chris Pratt's never really in any danger. One of the characters is in danger and then is not. We go through like a whole death sequence and then it's like, oh, no, never mind, I'm not dead. It's just like, they don't really feel the need to have that be the thing, even though they amass, because of all these other robots they encounter along the way, they amass more robots. It never feels like they're willing to let this relationship between Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt, which really doesn't exist, like between these two characters, they're not really friends. Um, it's in Chris Pratt feels so out of place trying to be the hero in this movie, uh, that they're not really willing to sacrifice that, like his character, to to further any sort of adventure with stakes. And that's me saying I would have killed Chris Pratt off. Um, but I don't know. The movie just doesn't really go anywhere, do anything, or especially for the money. Is it offensively bad? No, it's not offensively bad. It just lives in this world now where Netflix keeps making these movies that are very average. The problem with that is this is a $320 million movie, and you shouldn't have to spend that much money to get a movie that is decidedly average. So, that you can put on and be like, oh, I saw that. It's got a score by Alan Silvestri, which was, I I didn't hate it. Um, I like the audio description. I was really intrigued by the robot that was the size of a skyscraper. I was like, when did we build a robot the size of a skyscraper? Like not just a tall building, but a skyscraper, you know? Um, I was really fascinated by the location of this. They're in this zone. Feels like a sort of like a DMZ in a way, but it's like where the robots are and it's like walled off. Like, where do we put this? They're obviously in America. And but like Chris Pratt makes it sound like that we're not on Earth. And he's like, yeah, just go down, just go to that wall and just start walking for about 10 years. And then it gets to the end. And I'm like, I mean, it would, you could get to from one end of America to the other in under that amount of time. It's like 100,000 square feet or something like that is the is the range of this thing. I was like, where is this? So, yeah, I mean, I have questions, but I don't think the film wants to answer them. The film's just interested in, yeah, well, we're here, and we're gonna go over there now, and that's then we're gonna go over there after that, and after that we're gonna go over there. Eventually, we're gonna get to the end of the movie, and you're gonna be happy, but not for the reasons that you expected. You're gonna be happy because, well, the movie ended, and you don't have to sit through it anymore. It's a little over 2 hours long. Again, I think this might be the best audio description I've heard of the year because of the possibilities. It's a dystopian sci-fi movie with a bunch of different robots, so it just allows for that. Performance-wise, I can't really say that anybody stood out here in any sort of performance. I mean, I'm happy to see certain people and hear voices. Love Brian Cox. His performance here excited me more than his performance in Lord of the Rings War of the Rohirrim, where he feels very underutilized and poorly written. Here he's a gimmick, but at least I know he's a gimmick. I'm not expecting there to be more to his character. I'm like, well, he's going to be here for 5 minutes, because that's just how this movie's working at this point. So, Stanley Tucci is a villain. He's played the role before. I don't know. He seems whatever. Same thing with, I just, there's nothing really extraordinary here, but there's nothing really extraordinarily awful about this movie either. It just lacks the soul. I thought people were a little bit hard on Atlas for the same reason. I thought people were like, well, this is dreadful. It's like, is it? Or is it just that it's really mediocre and it should have been a lot better? Is that the problem? Because I think that's the problem. I mean, I saw movies that I thought were actually terrible and showed no lack of skill in filmmaking. But then they make these flashy movies that just sort of have no soul and are just kind of moving from beat to beat to beat. They're not really fun. There are no stakes. The actors are not really giving any of their best performances. Nobody really feels like, like they make those kind of movies too. But then they actually make bad movies. Like they actually make like really crappy movies. And I don't think Electric State is quite there. Uh, if I can get on the tomato meter, I would lean rotten though. I think I don't really think there isn't a reason. It's sort of like right in the middle for me when I give movies like the grade of C. It's like you could go either way. You could go, I could lean fresh, or I could lean rotten. I don't really have the reason to lean fresh when I'm cutting down the middle. There isn't like a standout performance that makes me go, oh yeah, you should see it because of this. Honestly, my reason is you should see this because of the audio description, which is not really a tangible reason for sighted people to understand why something should be on the tomato meter. There's got to be a performance that comes along with it. And I didn't think anybody was like a standout that was so good that it's like, oh man, this one performance blew my mind. I don't have that. And I love these actors. There isn't an actor here who I don't like, who I'm like, I don't want to watch movies with this person in them. So, yeah, Russo brothers just wasted what could have been 32 Brady Corbet movies. So perspective, Netflix. I don't know. Why don't you think about that next time? Think about how you use your money and how other directors and auteurs are able to make excellent films for very little money. And then you give the Russo brothers a blank check and they make you a big, loud, shiny movie that people are not going to be rewatching on Netflix. This is not going to be something that goes on forever and ever and ever. It's not as terrible as it would seem, but this is what happens when you have things that are aggregators and you have critics who are all like, that wasn't good. It just feels like it's worse because it's really hard for anybody to say that was good or that was the best movie of the year. I'm pretty generous. I consider myself a pretty generous critic, and I have a really hard time standing up for the Electric State. So my final grade is C. Thank you for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the other side.